Yeah, I'd say good morning, but ain't a whole lot good about it from a Jaguar perspective. Well, good morning anyway. How about that? Not our fault, not your fault in the listening audience that the Jaguars are at the state of affairs that they are at right now with the worst loss in franchise history, one of the worst losses in NFL history when you factor in the yardage differential. Should never give up 475 yards in a game. The Jags got outgained by 475 yards yesterday. Third largest total in NFL history, not franchise history, NFL history. Largest margin of defeat for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Arguably the worst game in the history of the franchise. I mean, honestly, I say arguably because somebody might pull one out and say, well, this is bad as well. Yes, there are other ones bad. I don't know if there's anything worse than what we saw yesterday, Tony Smith.
They've never experienced anything like this in the middle of a season where they actually had expectations. That's certainly true.
Well, 50-10 in 98 to Minnesota.
They did, but 98 turned out okay.
Right, but they had expectations.
Right, but the expectations weren't completely destroyed by the time that they got beat that badly that year. Like this year, this is just teams beating a corpse every week against the Jaguars, and they are so lifeless. Yesterday, we were talking about right before we came on, Dave, no life. There was no energy. It was the one thing that they seemed to have even when they were getting beat to this point this year. It's like, well, the guys are still playing hard, right? It felt like they at least had that to rely on. Yesterday, there was none of that. It was almost like they heard the news about the coach maybe on the hot seat, and they said, what can we do about this, right? Like, that's what yesterday.
We can help them get out of here.
That's what yesterday felt like. I don't know if that's actually what happened with the players in that room, but that's what it felt like watching the game. They were lifeless.
Well, I mean, I can just tell you, watching that game really made me feel like when we have our scout team in practice and we tell them, hey, this is what we're doing. This is what we need you to do. Let that guy get inside. I know you're not going to do that in real life, but that's what the other team looks like they let the guy do. So let him get in there, and I'm going to throw it right there. Don't touch it. Don't touch the ball. You know where it's going. Let us complete it so we can feel good. And then you just do that all practice long, and we're just killing our scout team, man. We feel good out here. That's exactly what it felt like. I mean, the amount of chunk plays, the amount of guys just running free in the middle of the field with nobody touching them. I've never seen a display of from start to finish that bad. You have moments in the game, you can even get blown out by somebody, but at some point you look like, all right, okay, they're looks like they're turning it around here. They're fighting harder. I watched the Bengals game last night, and they were getting just blown out in the first half. But then in the second half, you could see the defense kind of turn it around and started coming just a little bit harder. You never saw that at any point in the game yesterday.
Yeah, the Jags have done that in recent weeks.
Yeah.
Right? They've fallen behind Philadelphia, Green Bay, whatever. They made it a game, but yesterday's like the dam broke. Enough was enough. This is, we can't fight the good fight anymore and not get those positive results. I'm not saying they consciously said that to themselves, but that
it looked like they consciously said that.
It looked like, but I don't think that, I don't think they're sitting there going, okay, today's the day we're just going to quit. I'm going to assume that it's not that blatant, but in terms of, I don't know how you can't be impacted by everything that's swirling around this team. Everybody is plugged in today, right? Don't tell me you don't read. It's not like,
newspapers and magazines,
right.
You can avoid them.
If I don't pick up the paper, I don't know what's going on necessarily. I can turn off the radio. I can turn off the TV. Everyone's got their phone in their hand, and their phone is a constant 24/7 news feed.
Yep.
And these guys, they're in the locker room after the game. 2 seconds after they're in the locker room, they're out checking their social media. What are people saying about how we played today? They know exactly the circumstance, and it feels like dead man walking, right? And so, you're going to Detroit, who is arguably the best team in the NFL. And right now, I think they can stake that claim after Kansas City lost yesterday. And you're not getting the results. You're down to your backup quarterback who put up a flimsy offensive performance last week. It just all snowballed, perfect storm. And for a lot of Jaguar fans, honestly, they wanted something approaching this. They did. They don't want any half measures. They didn't want, if we're going to lose to Detroit, let's make it cosmetically look good with a couple of fourth quarter touchdowns and then somebody can convince Shad Khan that they need to hang on to their job. All anyone's doing right now is sitting back waiting, and they're refreshing their social media going, when's it coming? When's it coming? When's it coming? I don't know. I don't know what's coming. I can't tell you what's coming, but something better be coming in the next 24 hours. Something has to be coming. You cannot, by not doing anything at this point in time, you're sending a signal that this is acceptable.
Yeah.
Or at least it's not like rock bottom. Like, if this is not rock bottom, this may be rock bottom for the franchise. Now, it's not the worst season in Jaguar history because they did go 1-15, but that led them to a quarterback that you hope will drag him out of it. And I hope there's a renewed appreciation for what Trevor Lawrence is capable of doing with this collection of offensive talent after we've seen what Mac Jones has done for the last 2 weeks.
In the beginning, the owner said this is the best collection of talent we've ever had. So that right there alone should say you get beat 52-6, whatever it was, and 7 possessions, 7 touchdowns. Like, you can't ever have that, especially not with the best collection of talent you've ever had in an organization.
We don't know who said that to him, although we've all speculated that it was Trent, right? Like, and if Trent was the one who said it to him, I don't know how you survive that.
Exactly.
Right? Like, you say that to the owner, and this is what's actually on the field. Like, I don't know how many times you can say, well, I gave him all the pieces, and the coaches are blah, blah, blah. Like, those, I don't know how many times Trent Baalke's going to be able to get away with that, right, in his GM career. But they are at a point now, there's 1:30 this afternoon. Coach is supposed to be speaking. That feels like a deadline of sorts for everybody. It's like that. This has to be done before he steps to the podium.
Something has to be done. Some decision needs to be made if there's going to be a decision made.
It has to.
How does Ryan Nielsen, last week when we ran a poll, Dave, you weren't here. This is on Wednesday. We ran a poll. Who out of these 4, just in 2024, because that's all Nielsen's been here, who out of these 4 has done the best job this year? The best. Baalke, Peterson, Press Taylor, Ryan Nielsen, right? I mean, GM, head coach, and your 2 major coordinators. Heath Farwell, you are on a pedestal right now, sir.
We made the whole fan base do a firewalk for a couple of days on the show.
Because it's tough. Yeah. Well, who did the best? None of them are doing a good job. No. Okay, but relative to each other, who do you think has done the best? 37% said Nielsen. He, at that time,
that would have been my answer.
He had the worst defense in the league at that point.
I know.
At that point.
And that is what's really sad is the best coach that we feel like we have has the worst defense.
I didn't feel like he was the best coach that we had. I mean,
out of those guys?
No. He had the worst ranked defense in the entire league before this week.
But when you watch the games, you don't say, okay, our defense is actually playing.
You're looking at recency bias. You're looking at one game, the Minnesota game, where they got turnovers and they held them to 12 points. They still allowed 400 yards in that game. Eddie, it doesn't matter. I'm not yelling at you.
Really
I'm
doesn't.
Just frustrated.
Because I wanted them fired after like week 3 because it looked terrible. But recently, yes, defense has been
one game.
Somehow.
How you feel now?
No.
Absolutely
not.
What was it, 645 they put up yesterday? Was that the final test? 644, excuse me. A kneel down got him at the end. 644 yards.
Oh, my God.
Allowed. Most total net yards allowed and total first downs allowed for a non-overtime game in franchise history by the Jags. Detroit had their largest margin of victory, the most yards they've had. They've been playing football since 1930 in the NFL.
Almost 100
Most first downs in a game in Detroit franchise history yesterday. Okay? It is, we are at rock bottom, people. And let's not fight amongst ourselves.
We really are.
They're honestly, rip it out by the roots is the way it needs to go. I don't know if that all happens in one fell swoop today. I don't want to, if somebody gets fired today and that's like the precursor to more coming in the offseason, that's one thing. We can't anticipate what's going to happen 6 weeks from now, right? But if one thing happens today and then we're like, that's it, we fixed it, that's not enough.
What's the most in a team has ever turned over players? Like how many is there a way to
roster?
Find? Yeah.
That's
get rid of all the coaches
that's a good
first
question.
And foremost. And then how many guys can we get rid of legally to be able to still have a functioning team going into next season.
Well, you could get rid of as many as you like as long as you can re-sign enough guys
That's
to
what I'm
fill
saying.
out your roster.
But that's what I feel like we need to do. It's not just coaches, players, because I don't want the stink of these guys that we don't feel like can get into next year and really keep this team charged and going and fighting. I just feel like if you play the way you did yesterday, why would we want to have you stay with this organization?
But there are always, even on the worst teams, there are players that are redeemable,
Yes.
that are good, right? So,
But I want to change all the other guys. Get all of them out of here,
Well,
the ones that
obviously,
aren't.
and that's a conversation for the weeks ahead.
Yeah.
What is the core of this team? Because somebody called up in the postgame yesterday and said, we need to basically blow it up and start from scratch. Well, you can't.
I know you
just invested all this money and all the
And
salary
those
cap
guys are going to be
implications
the
that come
ones
with
that
it.
stay, yeah.
They're going to be here.
Yep.
Okay. Now, what do you do to add around them, to fill in around them? You need a culture change. You need a talent change. You need scheme change. You need so many changes.
We just played that Chargers team a few years ago in the playoffs and beat them. And it isn't even close now.
Nah.
I mean,
we're close with about 4 or 5 other teams. There's some really bad teams in the NFL.
And they've changed their head coach, and we still have the same.
And you know what they're attributing it to today? Culture change.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they said after the game last night, that in years past, we wouldn't have pulled this out.
Yep.
We would have collapsed after Cincinnati.
And that's
came
how
back
I
on us.
remember the Chargers, as a team that plays really good but can never finish
Didn't
the game.
have the heart.
Couldn't find a way to win.
Yep.
It wasn't this bad. I just saw this. So the Lions ran 76 plays. They had 38 first downs.
Yeah.
So one out of every 2 plays,
Every other play, they got a
had
first down.
a first down.
At one point, they
How?
only had like 4 third downs in the late in the game.
38 first downs.
38 first downs, and out of 76 plays. First of all, 76 plays. Way too many.
That's a lot of plays, first of all.
After, 84 last week, whatever it was? I mean, you're averaging 80 plays on
Defense
defense
is
the
building
last 2 weeks.
shelters on the field before they play. Like, that's how bad it's getting at times.
Woo!
Hey, Mia here, and thanks so much for watching 1010XL Jaguars. For even more coverage of the Big Cats, be sure to subscribe to 1010XL Jaguars.